Al Capone. In the early 1900s, America was a place of great change. Many people came from other countries looking for a better life. Cities like New York and Chicago were growing fast. But there were also problems. One big problem was crime. Some men became very rich by breaking the law. One of the most famous was Al Capone. During this time, alcohol was illegal in the United States. This was called prohibition. People still wanted to drink, so criminals started selling alcohol in secret. These criminals became very powerful. Al Capone was one of the most powerful of them all. His story is full of crime, danger, and mystery. The early life of Al Capone. Alphonse Capone was born on January 17, 1899, in Brooklyn, New York. His parents were from Italy. They came to America to find a better life. Al was a smart boy, but he did not like school. He left school when he was 14 years old. As a teenager, Al joined small gangs. He met a gangster named Johnny Torrio. Torrio became his mentor. Torrio taught him how to make money in the world of crime. Al Capone wanted to be powerful, and he was ready to do anything to get there. Capone also worked at a few regular jobs before fully entering a life of crime. One of his early jobs was as a bouncer in a nightclub. It was during this time that he got his famous nickname Scarface after being attacked with a knife. He was very sensitive about his scar and often tried to hide it in photographs. Moving to Chicago. In 1919, Al Capone moved to Chicago. Johnny Torrio invited him to join his gang. Torrio's gang made money by selling alcohol, gambling, and other illegal activities. In 1925, Torrio was attacked by a rival gang. He decided to leave Chicago. He gave his business to Al Capone. Capone became the boss. He was only 26 years old, but he was very smart. He made millions of dollars from illegal businesses. He paid the police and politicians to protect him. No one could stop him. Capone expanded his empire by controlling breweries, speakeasies, and nightclubs. He had thousands of men working for him, making his organization one of the most powerful in America. His power was so great that he even controlled some judges and high-ranking officials. The power and violence of Al Capone. Al Capone was rich and powerful, but he was also violent. He fought with other gangs for control of Chicago. His men used guns and bombs to kill enemies. The most famous event was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929. On February 14th, Capone's men killed 7 members of a rival gang. People were shocked. They started to fear Capone more than ever. Capone liked to show his wealth. He wore expensive suits, drove big cars, and lived in a beautiful house. Many people in Chicago saw him as a hero. He gave food and money to poor people, but he was also a dangerous man. Despite his brutal reputation, Capone tried to present himself as a businessman. He even donated large sums of money to charity, trying to improve his public image. He often claimed that he was simply providing a service that people wanted. The fall of Al Capone. The government wanted to stop Al Capone. They could not prove that he ordered the killings, but they found another way to arrest him. Capone did not pay taxes on his money. In 1931, he was arrested for tax evasion. The court found him guilty. He was sent to prison for 11 years. At first, he went to a prison in Atlanta. But later, he was moved to Alcatraz, a prison on an island. There, he lost his power. His health became worse. In 1939, he was released from prison. He was a different man. He was sick and weak. He went to live in Florida with his family. During his time in prison, Capone suffered from syphilis, a disease that affected his brain. His mental state deteriorated, and by the time he was released, he was no longer the powerful crime boss he once was. On January 25, 1947, Al Capone died at the age of 48. His life was full of crime and violence, but he remains one of the most famous gangsters in history. Al Capone's story is one of power, crime, and downfall. He became rich and famous, but in the end, he lost everything. His name is still remembered today. Some see him as a criminal, while others see him as a legend. One thing is certain: his story will never be forgotten. Capone's legacy lives on in movies, books, and history. His name is often associated with the Prohibition era, a time when crime and corruption were at their peak in America. Despite his criminal activities, he remains one of the most intriguing figures in American history.